the fires we're cast upon, on the flames we shall become. I believe in a common calling where our temples pray as one. I believe in the word of wonder and a kingdom for the saved. I believe in...
This is Larry Pollock from Underground Performance Gym, hardcore training gym in Ventura, California. I'm here today with IFBB Pros Austin Karr and Luke Carroll. And today we're going to talk about a subject that's been on a lot in bodybuilding news, and that is death in bodybuilding, and is there a healthy way to do bodybuilding? And there's been different ideas floating around about why that seems to be there be more deaths recently than in prior years. A lot of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but we're going to try to get into the deep reasons, like why some of these things are happening and what can be done to prevent this. And is there actually a healthy way to do bodybuilding on a competitive level?
Hey Larry, good to be back. Austin, how are you?
I appreciate you guys, and great topic. I love to be here to talk about it. So thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, right on. Where do you want to start, Larry?
So Austin has a interesting story because pretty recently he had a health scare, and so I'll let him kick it off because he went through some stuff, and actually because of some of the stuff he went through, I went and got all my tests done too. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll get into our individual things as well.
Cool. Just a timeline about it. 2021, I competed at the Texas Pro. I got second. Was super excited about that placing in the 212. I only weighed like 204 or something like that, really light. But I decided I want to go to the open class as soon as that show was done. So I hooked up with, I don't want to say the coach, but I definitely went into a deep, like, blast off season right away from the show. I should have got blood work done, and I should have kind of backed off, but I had already knew I had crappy blood work from that year, competing that whole year. So instead of taking a break like some bodybuilders, I just started going into a full blast, and that wasn't probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. So I was planning to do Indy Pro in 2022. I think that show was in May or March. It was like the first show of the year for the IFBB Open Leagues. So for that show, everything was good, man. I got up to 265 at my height of 5'8", with, really, really lean. Probably would have been on stage around 240s, and I looked insane. I never blasted that amount of gear that I ever touched in my life. I knew I was putting myself at risk, and I was just ignoring, if I was getting side effects. I was tired all day. I felt like shit. All these things were in my head, but I kept saying, you know what, I need to get to open. I'm getting older. I'm in my later 30s. I just want to blast and get on stage as an open bodybuilder. I've been hearing about it my whole career. And then my coach said, hey, why don't you go get a CT scan or a calcium score and a CT scan? And I was like, I had no clue what the hell any of that hard stuff was. So I went in to go get an EKG in 2022 in June, and it came back up normal. And what happens is, if it comes back up normal, the doctor, the cardiologist will say, well, we need you to come in for more testing because there's something going on, maybe a prior heart attack or you're about to have a heart attack. So I came back in to do an echocardiogram, and I found out my ejection fraction was 45%. A normal level for most healthy individuals is 55 to 70%. So I was definitely below the normal range. And they said, okay, well, we need to do a CT angiogram to see if you have any blockages or any type of, major arrhythmias, stuff like that. So I got the CT scan with dye in 2022, and it came back, and I had a lot of calcium buildup in my arteries, and I had no clue at the time what the hell that meant. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I come to find out that it actually, the arteries were not blocked, but there was calcium inside them. So I just took off 2.5 years. I basically went down to a TRT dose from 2022 to 2024. Currently now, I've done a lot of cardio. I changed my healthy, everything I did with bodybuilding before. I completely changed my protocols, trying to be healthy, doing, cardio every day, just to keep my heart, cardiovascular system up, and not worrying about the weight, trying to gain so much weight, because I'm still around 245, 250, but I'm not on any gear. So I know if I start blasting again, I can definitely get back up there. But I did all the tests this year for my echocardiogram and my arteries, and it turns out that I didn't have any blockages. It was just calcium that builds up in your arteries over time. If you have bad plaque from cholesterol buildup, that's normal. It happens in a lot of individuals, even normal people not on steroids. But, taking steroids can cause bad lipids, and bad lipids over time with inflammation can cause sticky plaque, and that gets in your arteries, and that can cause a heart attack. But I don't have any blockages. My ejection fraction went from 45 to 70%. And I just got that 2 weeks ago in Vegas with the guy with Dom Super Slide here. And I'm super excited because I'm still pretty big and I still feel healthy. I feel like I did everything necessary to get back on the stage. So that's just basically in a nutshell what happened to me. The moral of the story is, guys, if you're taking anabolics and you're competing, or even if you're a big guy, you need to be careful of your lipids, your inflammation levels, and make sure you're doing if you can, every 2 years, get a calcium score or some kind of echocardiogram just to make sure you're healthy. Because with all the stuff going on nowadays with COVID and all the vaccines, you don't know what's out there. You might have something underlying that could have sped up with taking the vaccine. So just get it checked. But, I'm all good now. And I'm here, a living testament to help guys call me or text me, whatever, that have heart issues. I take it upon myself to really help those guys out, to make sure that they're doing all the necessary things. I'm not a doctor, so I just give my advice what happened to me. So basically that's my story. And I'm always free on Instagram to call or text if you have questions about how to get your lipids back, what products to take, what things to do necessary if you have these issues.
I actually want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of podcasts I see, they just say, do this, but they kind of don't really get into the minutia of how to do it, what to do. So my understanding is that you get what's called atherosclerosis, and basically that's like hardening of the walls of the endothelium. And what can happen is plaque will start to stick to that, and that plaque is why they do the calcium score. That plaque is calcium, and then it's also lipids, it's also cholesterol, and then it gets thicker and thicker. And then what happens is it can break loose, and if it breaks loose, it'll plug an artery, and then you'll have a heart attack. Also, it narrows the veins and arteries, and you get weaker, smaller ejection fraction because there's higher blood pressure that has to go through these tighter veins. So you run risks kind of all down the path. And from my view, the biggest thing that I see people not doing is their cardio. And what I would say is you need to get into that. It's zone 3. So there's different zones. It goes by age, but for my age, I'm almost 40. My age, zone 3 is 126 beats per minute to 144. I typically get up to 140 to 145 when I'm doing my Stairmaster. And in bodybuilding, there's like this stigma against cardio. Oh, you're going to lose your gains. You're going to, your legs are going to be smaller, like all these things from if you're actually doing your cardio. But on the backside of doing your cardio, because I've been on both sides of this, I bulked up to 270, just eating, lifting heavy, taking gear, and I could do a set of 6 or 7 reps, on the hack squat, and I literally had to wait for 8-9 minutes before my heart rate would come down to do another set. And then I was like, man, this is terrible. And I was having like crazy anxiety just from, I was running Tren and I was that heavy. I went up to that heavy in just like a couple months, from like 250 to 270 in just a couple months. And so I was having like these issues, and I decided, all right, I'm gonna start hitting the Stairmaster, 100 flights of stairs per day is what I basically did. And I was getting in, 5 to 7 days a week. And it took me a month, and I was already able to do more weight, more at the same weight. I was able to increase my sets up to that 11, 12, 13. And then my response to come back on my second set was like 3-4 minutes instead of like a 10, have to lay on the fan for 10 minutes. And so I realized immediately, if you get in 30-40% more training volume because you're doing 25 minutes on the Stepmaster, the carbohydrate or the calories that you're burning doing that way outweigh the amount that you'd lose, that you're somehow burning off by not doing cardio at all. Just keeping, and then it has a cascade of effects. I mean, your heart is healthier, your heart is, going, so you're increasing your longevity. So I think that stigma of, oh, I don't need to do cardio, oh, I'm young, oh, it's not an issue. I think that you're hurting your gains by not doing that stuff. So I think, that's pretty much my like step one for longevity in bodybuilding is keep doing the stuff, keep doing the hard stuff. I mean, it's not that hard, but it's like, it just takes time. You got to take an extra time. It takes, that zone 2, I would say, is a cardio where you can't carry on a conversation. It's like you're huffing and puffing. You're supposed to be getting up to the point where it's cardio. If you're doing below 120 beats per minute, that's just getting in steps. That's not doing cardio for me.
Yeah, but I agree. The number one, look at our number one ambassador in our sport, Jay Cutler, and he lives in Las Vegas. I'm good friends with Jay. Yep. Look at Jay every day.
He gets in his cardio every day. He's been doing it since he was like 18 years old. You see him on the Stairmaster. You see him getting it every day. You see him. He owns a treadmill. He owns a Stairmaster in his house. He does it every morning. I
mean, he's putting it on his Instagram story, doing 30 minutes on the stairs, and then he does like 10 minutes on the Stairmaster or the treadmill right after. Yeah. But
and look at him as a retired Mr. Olympia. He's still doing great. He's 3 generations old on Mr. Olympia from, 2009 was, I think 9 was his last win. I think 10 was the last win. Yeah. But still, that's 15 years ago. Yeah. And he's been retired since maybe 2012 or 13. And he's still doing the bodybuilding. I'm sure he's still on TRT, and I'm sure but he's still eating like a bodybuilder. He's still, getting in his steps, all the stuff, and he still looks great. So Jay's going to have a lot of longevity. I'm not, he's doing bodybuilding right, and people should take a note from that.
I think kids should really look at this sport as a longevity versus a sprint. Mm-hmm. And you were always probably coming up, Luke, hey, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Yeah. And I that too, but you when you're young,
even guys still, they'll be hit me up. They're 45 and they want to do I'm going to do DECA and D-ball and test, and I'm going to do 800 milligrams and 800 and this and that. I'm like, you're looking at a 2-gram cycle, and your blood, you're 46. Like, what's your blood pressure going to do? You don't have that young healthy body anymore. I mean, so I counsel these guys. I'm like, what are you chasing? Like, you're never going to be a pro bodybuilder. You waited too late in life, and then maybe you didn't have the genetics anyways. But what you can do is run a little, if you want to run a cycle, but run a little TRT, run a little something like Primo that's going to be, no blood, no water retention, nothing crazy on you. Your dick's still going to work. Your longevity is going to be great. You're not going to have any crazy moods because you're running on trend and you're doing any kind of like off the wall shit with your wife and girlfriend and stuff like that, So like people can do stuff as they get older, but you just need to realize, like, stay in your lane on what you're doing. Taking heavy oral cycles is not it,
Right. So I would, there's 2 things I could change, Luke, coming up in the sport. I would have probably taken out all the orals in the off season.
100%.
I would have never touched an AI unless I literally had like gyno or some like bitch tits or something terrible with my estrogen. But I would have never touched AIs because I took those like freaking candy every day from like beginning of my career, like midway, and I was like, I felt like shit, and they didn't even do anything.
Well, I think some guys, okay, with AIs, the leaner you are, probably the less potential you're going to need them. If you keep in that below 12%, your body's just going to aromatize less. If you're above that, then you do need some. I don't like Arimidex because it is a suicide inhibitor, and it's 1 milligram. It's a very low dose, a few times a week. Like that first day you take it, it probably goes to 0. And maybe a day or two later, you're coming back up a little bit. I like to use DHTs because they have a anti-estrogenic effect that's mild.
Right.
And then if you do need an AI, I like Exemestane because it can bind and it can unbind. And then the dosage on it is a lot higher. Usually it's like, 12.5 to 25 milligrams. So, if you want to kind of like, microdose it, you could cut that 12.5 to half that, 6.25. You could. So I just think it's a more light-handed AI. So some people definitely need it. Some people create an insane amount of estrogen. So, but I think that to demonize it completely, I think maybe is a little bit of an overreach. But I think that if you got gyno, you're probably not going to fix it with an AI. You probably just need to get it taken. I had to get it taken out. Kind of look at it realistically. Don't try to nuke your whole body with 0 estrogen because you have an issue. You need to go fix that issue is what you need to do. Estrogen, estradiol is neuroprotective for your brain. So you don't have, brain issues way down the road. And then it's also heart protective. The way that AIs jack your lipids up like crazy is because there's no estrogen. Estrogen is good for your heart and your lipids. So, that's just kind of like the 30,000 foot view of AIs.
Because what happens is, I think when you crush your estrogen, estrogen actually protects and it builds blood vessels to help those in the walls that we were talking about with the artery. Yeah, and if you don't have good blood vessels, you're literally not getting any protection. And even in your body in general with blood vessels, it helps protect, just inside internally. But estrogen, low estrogen levels over time can actually affect those blood vessels. So that's definitely, you don't want.
Yeah, the estrogen's not the enemy. You definitely need some, and actually kind of on the higher end is going to help you better for growing. If you go too low, your dick's not going to work. You're going to be moody. Like there's a lot of negatives to too low of estrogen for sure. So let's get Larry in on this.
So I'm going to give you guys a little bit different perspective because
he came from the 80s and 90s, so he has a different perspective.
I did, but also genetically, I'm different than, I don't know, most people maybe. Number one, I'm always lean. I've always been since I was a teenager, almost regardless of what I eat. And whether I do cardio or not, I'm like 5%. So that's never been a thing. I've never had gyno. Acne, very little when I was a teenager, but hardly ever get that either. So all the estrogenic effects that you would expect to have from a high estrogen, I never saw that. I never had it. Like I said, I'm super lean. I've never had gyno, never had acne, none of that. However, on my blood work, I've had times when my estrogen was pretty high. Now, one thing that I've learned in recent years is that actually nandrolone can test as estrogen. It can in certain blood work.
Trenbolone can. Yeah.
Nandrolone.
Yeah, I've heard.
I know Trenbolone can. I don't know about nandrolone.
And I like nandrolone because of I like it with my joints and everything else. But so I've had times where my estrogen was high. The only symptom that I ever experienced from the high estrogen was difficulty getting a hard on. Okay. It would get like halfway hard and that's it.
We've all been there. Every bodybuilder has nuked their hormones one direction or the other and realized, oh, I need to pull back. I need to do something different.
And there was a time I was getting Aromasin, and it was coming from a pharmaceutical distributor in India. And supposedly the stuff was like straight out of a pharmacy. It had the hologram, the whole bit. And I was using it, but it wasn't fixing the issue. And I switched brands, and immediately, like the next day, that fixed it. So I had fake Aromacin. Mm-hmm. I still have like 5 bottles of this fake Aromacin that I never touched. So that's one thing. And as soon as I got the real stuff, it worked. The reason I chose Aromacin over
or anastrozole.
Anastrozole and also
letrozole
is because supposedly it's less harsh on your lipids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Now, just like, okay, when I was diagnosed with a hyperthyroidism, like low thyroid, I had a lot of blood work done through the doctor to figure out the actual level of thyroid that I need to be in a normal level. And for me, with extensive blood work, when I say extensive, I mean I had blood work done like every single week for like almost a year. And my 175 milligrams of levothyroxine.
Micrograms?
Micrograms, I'm sorry.
I was like, that's a lot of thyroid hormone.
Puts me at perfect levels with my T3, T4, TSH, everything.
Even that's a pretty high dose, the 175.
But that's the level. That's the dosage that it took for me to be at optimal level of thyroid.
Mm-hmm. Well, levothyroxine is T4, and your body converts T4 to active thyroid hormone. So I think that even if you kind of use a higher dose, I've heard it's still not going to be a bad thing. If you do use a high dose of T3, then you could have issues, but your body's only going to really convert what it needs.
I can't even touch T3. If I touch T3, it feels like I'm on crack.
Yeah.
Like I literally get low blood sugar, and I can feel like dropping weight immediately. But the T4, I don't have that problem, and it keeps my T3, it converts at a normal level. My TSH is normal. Everything's normal. Same thing with the anti-estrogen. Regardless of which anti-estrogen you get, if you take too much of it, you can crash your estrogen. If you take none of it, your estrogen could be high. The only way you're going to know is blood work. So what I did is, again, kept checking my blood work. And so what I found is 20 milligrams 3 times a week of the Aromacin puts me just in the high end of normal range on the estrogen. I don't want to be low, I don't want to be high, but 3 times a week. And that's with what I'm taking, which is 400 milligrams of test a week and 200 milligrams of NPP. That's what I've been using for like forever.
So what Larry can't really take DHTs. If he does, he just gets dried out and he gets a tendon tear, muscle tear just immediately. So when I was saying I like to use DHTs, I absolutely love Primo. It works fantastic for me. Everything works great. So really, if you're youngish in your 20s coming into bodybuilding, you kind of there's no way to know that DECA is going to work great, that something's going to work great. So actually just like doing a cycle, your first cycle, just test, see how you respond. Your second or third cycle is test and a nandrolone or equipoise or, kind of whatever, and kind of building, keep notes like, all your health stuff. I kept my blood pressure. My dick didn't work. I felt, my libido was always crazy. My, whatever it is, keep these positive side effects and negative side effects and then weigh out. Because right now, I've been bodybuilding for taking gear for 15 years. And I just have a list of stuff that I can and can't run. It's easy. Like, I'm just like, when I need to do a bulk or a cut, I just like go to my list and I'm like, okay, yeah, growth hormone, insulin, test, Primo, that's pretty much it. So, I'm just sure you have a similar list for yourself, and Larry does too. Like you said, he loves nandrolones, tests. So he kind of just runs those things. He still experiments. I know he did like a DHB run a little while back, and he ended up hating it. So, just keeping notes of, if you're going to be in this for the long haul, what you like, what you don't like. And don't just say, oh man, I heard, Kevin Lebroni did Anadrol, so I think I got to do Anadrol. No, like maybe run it and then decide what if it's good for you or not.
So let me address some of that. So when I was younger, actually, I could run lots of nandrolone, and I didn't have the erectile dysfunction thing at all. And I also could run DHTs, and my joints would get sore, but not like debilitating. As I got older, I don't know if something changed. I had to lower my dosage of nandrolone to not have any side effects on that level, the sexual function part. So like I said, I only run 200 milligrams a week total of NPP. And then with the DHTs, it initially started with that dihydroboldenon. Everybody said it was the greatest stuff. Well, for me, I tried it for, I took it, I think, 200 milligrams for 8 weeks. I got crazy strong on it immediately, but 8 weeks in, all of a sudden, my joints started killing me. It started with my lower back, then my knees, then my shoulders, then my elbows. Then I started getting injuries. Like all at once it happened. And my understanding is it increases inflammation. I think it's CPRK. And for me, I had to cut that out. And after I cut it out, it took me 6 months to get over that chronic pain from that was caused by the DHT.
Yeah, I remember that your back was killing you.
Since then, like even Primo, I can't even touch it because as soon as I do, everything starts hurting. So I think your body, it depends on how your body reacts, and everybody's genetics are going to be a little different. And maybe as I got older, I'm more prone to inflammation, and that's a big factor. Now, one thing I want to mention is you guys were talking about getting your calcium score checked and all of this. So when I came up, all we had was blood work. I mean, that's all we knew about.
Yeah, the technology has definitely advanced quite a bit.
You know, I always got my blood work done, and everything was usually good, except my liver enzymes were usually high. Not super high, but they were high enough to the doctor was concerned. But
Did you run orals?
I had off and on, but regardless of whether I was running orals or not, my liver enzymes have been high. So, but I've had what's that?
Like what high? How high, Larry?
Oh, they varied over the years, but in the high, like I think it's been like up to 1,000.
I don't think I've ever been above 80 on my.
But meanwhile, I've gotten like 3 ultrasounds on my liver. Yeah, I've had liver biopsies. I've had another.
You were trying to chase down the issue, but
another test on my liver.
There wasn't an internal issue.
And they can't find anything wrong with my liver. Just my liver enzymes are high. And part of that maybe with the way I train. I don't know.
Yeah. You're supposed to, if you do blood labs, you're supposed to take 2-3 days off from the gym. And because the ALT is a breakdown enzyme from muscle tissue breakdown as well.
Yeah, and I probably never did that.
Yeah.
So anyways, but other than my liver enzymes being high, my blood work was perfectly normal. I had nothing else off. But since you guys were about 2 years ago, everybody was talking about getting your calcium score done and this and that. So I actually went and got it done, and my calcium score was really high.
Really?
Yeah, it was up there. I forget the number, but I talked to Austin about it at the time. So
I think it was like 800 or something.
What's that?
I think it was like 800 or something like that. It was like below mine, but it was high.
Right.
That's pretty high.
So I went and got the, what is the test where they test where the calcium is? It's
calcium CT. The CT is like an MRI.
I think it's an MRI.
Yeah, they do contrast.
We did the MRI with contrast.
Okay.
And the interesting thing in mine was I did have plaque buildup, but all of mine is on the outside. I have nothing on the inside of my arteries. It's all on the outside, which is still not good. But at least there's no blockages happening because it's all on the outside for who knows whatever reason. The cardiologist didn't have an explanation for it either. So since then, I've been like more cautious of my diet and everything else. But I have Crohn's also, so I'm like very limited on. I can't eat junk foods pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these tests, like I said, blood work didn't show that. I would never have known. So I had to get the calcium CT score and then the other tests done as well. And they ran ultrasound, they ran the MRI and all of that. And that's how they discovered it. Also, my left ventricle, I think they said the thickness is like double of a normal person.
Oh, you got a little left ventricular hypertrophy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Common.
Yeah, especially lifting heavy, for all those years.
That's training to failure, Larry. That's training to failure.
And I've been training to failure since I was 14.
I went in and I got my first calcium CT with contrast when I was 35, and it was 0. And then I asked them about the left ventricular hypertrophy. It was still 0, or they said it was none. And then I went in this year in like February, and I got it again, and they still said it's 0. But it was kind of interesting because I have health insurance now, and actually they didn't cover it, but my doctor had to write a prescription for it. And he said like, oh, why do you want this? You're too young for this. And I said, look, doc, I'm 40 years old, 265 pounds. I use gear, like I overeat because I'm like trying to push my size up. So like when is a good day to start? I don't want to start when I'm 65 and you'd be like, hey, your ejection fraction is 10%, like we should have caught this decades ago. I mean, would Dallas be alive if they had done, a ejection fraction test, and they would have said like, hey, bro, you need a freaking triple bypass right now. Like your arteries are like nearly closed. Like would, some of these guys still be alive that if they had earlier testing? So, and then also, by the way, just to go in and pay, the first time I got it done, I think it was $200. And then this last time you just go to like your hospital radiology place. I think it was like $120 or $140. Absolutely. Jeez. Do that. I do it once every 5 years now because mine was 0. But if anybody is around that age, 30, 35, maybe start a little bit younger with getting some of these like kind of important screenings done, especially if your lifestyle is, trying to be heavy, trying to, push size and stuff like that. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick. So people understand that, it's not like some insane test that it's like super hard. They literally just put you in there. It took like 3 minutes. It's just like a little circular MRI machine that they like run over your body. So it's super fast. So go get it done if you want to stay alive.
I think the number one thing that we can prevent and like literally keep ourselves healthy is go on Amazon and because most bodybuilders have big arms, get a blood pressure cuff that fits a bigger size arm and do your blood pressure almost every day if you can, and check it in the morning, right when you wake up fasted. And then if you want to do it midday or before you go to bed, you should always check your blood pressure regardless where you're at off prep, because that help prevent a lot of things, especially with the heart and your kidneys as well.
So Austin is 100% spot on with bodybuilding. The biggest thing, you can see it in animals. The biggest thing is bigger animals, bigger humans die younger. And it's because of the extra load to push blood, that far. It takes a lot of extra load on your arteries, your blood vessels, and your heart muscle to push blood that extra far. You look at like Great Danes, they live to be like 5, 6, bigger dogs, like pinchers and stuff. I've had 2 friends, they die like 7, maybe they make it to like 10. Little dogs, they're like 20-year animals. Chihuahuas live forever because they're fucking evil. But like, dachshunds and stuff like that, like corgi, like they all are like long because they're so small. So, longevity is going to be kind of go towards the smaller size. And so with bodybuilding, the biggest thing that's killing people is they're not, exactly what Austin said, they're not minding their blood pressure, and your kidneys get destroyed. You cannot live without your kidneys. And, it just cascades down from there. You start having heart issues because your blood pressure is so high. Your heart starts, leaking when it pumps. It starts, not pumping efficiently. You start having a lot of issues. So exactly what Austin said, get your blood pressure checked. If it's high, if it's above 130, 135, get on some telmisartan, get on some losartan, get on, some of those blood pressure meds that are actually kidney protective, and save your longevity, because it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, like, if you get bigger, you're going to have more pressure. You're going to have to, the way that those sartans work is they are called ARBs, and what is the hormone called?
Is it
angiotensin? Yeah. And so what they do is angiotensin constricts the blood vessels, so they are angiotensin reducing agents, and they actually just open up your blood vessels better, so you can have a bigger hose to pump more blood. It probably will help with erections. It probably will help with pumps. So there's a lot of benefits as well. Get your heart, keep your heart and kidneys healthy, and you'll live a long, long time. And then how to do that is do cardio. Don't let your lipids get crazy. Keep your carbohydrates, normal, so your triglycerides aren't wild. And then if they do, fix it. Like, exactly like Austin said. I mean, he checked it. He was able to reverse it and extend his life significantly, and his quality of life, because, maybe you would live to be 60, something like that, and you have kidney failure, and then you're stuck doing dialysis every other day, every couple days, because you got, blown kidneys. So there's a lot of things other than just dying that can really fuck your life up if you don't pay attention.
Another thing.
And I just want to
go ahead.
Sorry, Larry, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing that I wanted to say is that I don't, like, I talked to my parents. We don't have any family history of medical heart cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, kidney failure. None of my family members have any of those pre-genetic dispositions. So unfortunately, getting all the calcium and having that calcium score was whatever my lifestyle was with bodybuilding or whatever I was doing. And this is why it's so crucial, is I wasn't monitoring my blood work. Like Larry said, in the beginning of bodybuilding for at least 4 years, I was just getting blood work, but I wasn't looking at the actual HDL, LDL, looking at creatinine and all these little numbers. I was just like, oh, it looks okay. I'm going to go on a little blast, or I'll go on a little cruise here and there.
You weren't fixing the stuff. You were just checking it, but you weren't fixing it.
I was just saying to my coach, oh, I got my blood work done. Here, I'll send it to you. And the coach was like, oh, you're good to go. Mm-hmm. And then I would go back on for another 6 to 8 months, gosh knows when, and then did a show. And then, I took a month off and I'm back to go. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So those are things like I don't even have cardiovascular history in my family. Mm-hmm. So wow, like, you need to be careful what you're doing. And these are things that you can prevent. And that's why we want to do these podcasts, to let you guys know, like, this is stuff you can prevent, this stuff early in your early stages of bodybuilding. If you just do the main things, like we're saying, is blood work, do the scans, do the extra things, you'll extend your bodybuilding by years. So,
yeah. And a lot of people, I think people kind of want to just point at steroids being the only culprit for why this is happening. But this happens to people that don't take steroids. This happens to, people that are, type 2 diabetic. They get these same issues. They're getting them. And there's probably a little bit of overlap, because bodybuilders are pushing calories, pushing carbohydrates. So, there becomes that insulin resistance issue that, on both sides. So the things that we're talking about, even if you're not a drug bodybuilder, these are things that you should just be doing. Everybody should be doing these things just for, like, general health. Maybe there should be a little bit more for people that do bodybuilding and they get so big, and you really are. You're pushing your body. You're trying to push to the limits. You're trying to be the biggest, leanest, strongest human there is. So you're trying to push the limits of human physiology. So, but this goes for both, saying that you should get your stuff checked even if you are a healthy, or even if you are just like a normal person that doesn't do bodybuilding.
So one thing I wanted to mention is, and this has been talked about, but I don't think enough emphasis put on, is using a CPAP. I know I had severe sleep apnea for decades. And I know because, people would tell me, whoever girl I was with, you know, I'd wake up in the night choking,
Yeah.
snoring really loud, and all of this.
Big one, yeah.
And it has straight to do with the size of your neck and just your weight. And I just have a bigger neck from doing shrugs and training, whatever it is. I've never even done direct neck work, but
I mean, just getting bigger. I figured it out myself when I hit 265. I was like, I would sleep. I'd go to bed at 9 o'clock. I would wake up at 7. I'm sleeping, you know, 8, 10, 11 hours, but I would wake up and my skin just felt heavy. Like I just felt like I just felt like I'd been up partying till 4 a.m. and I woke up at 7 and I was just like, I was going for months like that. And finally I got tested. And I did have it. I was doing 16 events per hour or 16 events per minute. 16 events per hour. Sorry. One every 3 minutes. And then I got on the CPAP. I ended up dropping a little bit of weight down to 240 and all my issues went away. So, you know, but, you know, I've kind of like surmised that even if you don't have it, if you want to biohack yourself to make you an even more like healthy, like biohacked human, just using, you know, methods, mouth tape, a night guard that pulls your tongue forward, the CPAP. These are all different methods for getting the same thing done so that you don't start choking throughout your sleep.
well, I could do. Mine was worse. I think they said I was stopped breathing like 50 times in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard Regan did that. He had like 100 events per hour.
Yeah,
it was like
crazy.
two every second.
And I used to be scared to drive anywhere far.
Yeah.
Because I would feel like I was going to fall asleep at the wheel. And I knew I was going to die in a car accident because
How old were you when you had this issue?
I would say between probably like early 30s all the way up till I got the CPAP was in my late 40s.
Oh, wow. So you did it for a long time.
Yeah. And well, I would go to the doctor and I'd ask him about the CPAP.
CPAP technology was not what it is now, too.
And they would be like, oh, you're fine. You're young. You don't need that.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed it. And finally, I got a good doctor and I'm like, hey, you know, this is happening. Can you get me a sleep study? And then they sent me for the sleep study. And sure enough, I had severe sleep apnea. And I started using the machine immediately, like literally the first night I used it, I got the best sleep ever. Not falling asleep at the wheel the next day, not tired all day.
Your recovery probably went up immensely.
Yeah, everything, like my life changed.
You were
with that thing.
That was when you were your biggest too. Was probably in your late 30s.
Yeah. Actually, my biggest was in my early 40s. Mm-hmm. I got up to 245, 250. That was the biggest and strongest I ever was. And that's when I had like the worst sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And when I finally got it tested, they gave me the machine and I will not go anywhere without it. I use it religiously every single night. Even if I take a nap, if I'm home, I'll use it.
So I guess the kind of the takeaway from that would be, you know, we are trying to push our bodies to do these, you know, incredible things, but there's a lot of interventions that you can do to extend your life, instead, you know, keep your quality of life a lot better, help your recovery to make you even perform better. So, you know, just ignoring these things, which we've all done, is just
I've had
stupid.
young guys that I've talked to about using a CPAP, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to use that. That's not sexy." You know, I'll look like Bane.
It's kind of cool. I like looking like Bane.
It's like, you know what? Who cares? You go to sleep, and then there are people like, "Oh, it's uncomfortable on my face." You'll get used to it. I put that thing on, I'm knocked out in 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like as soon as I put it on, I crash.
You get used to it, for
and
sure.
It doesn't bother me at all. Actually, I like it because I can immediately, as I put it on, I can feel like the air, oxygen getting into me, and
breathing easier.
And I'm breathing better, and I just fall asleep.
Yeah, you got to have it set right for sure.
I think, Larry,
go ahead.
LVH, your left ventricle hypertrophy, that CPAP is crucial for you to wear that at night. If you're not getting oxygen, you're actually making your heart breathe. You're creating more oxygen, so it's pumping harder. So that CPAP is crucial for people with enlarged hearts, because you could definitely have a heart attack in your sleep.
I think all the years that I probably didn't use it because I didn't press it hard enough and the doctor didn't want to give it to me, probably made things worse. I wish I'd had it 20 years earlier.
One way that you can see if off of a blood lab, getting a sleep study is a, important, but one way you can see that if you may have sleep apnea is getting a blood lab and then looking at your hemoglobin hematocrit, because when you're not breathing, you're in a lower oxygen, your body's trying to fix that. So it's jacking up your red blood cell production. So then you can have an elevated hemoglobin and hematocrit.
And I have that right now. It's like a point too high.
I mean, it's common. It's common. I mean, when you use steroids, your body creates more red blood cells as well, so that it could be hard to see, but that is one indicator, especially for natties. If you're completely natural and you have high hemoglobin hematocrit, you could be having an issue with sleep apnea. But if you're a bodybuilder and you're above probably 220, you should just get a CPAP.
Do you guys use any supplements, like health supplements, beside specifically for like liver, kidneys, things like this?
Go ahead, Austin. I think I wanted to touch on that because you brought yourself back from the brink with the high or the high calcium score in the last couple of years. Did you use any supplements to do that, or was it mostly just diet and cardio related?
Actually, I was taking telmisartan, I think milligrams, which is a longer acting losartan, or that family losartan, telmisartan. I didn't really lower my blood pressure with that. I switched to lisinopril. I don't know if you've ever heard of lisinopril.
I'm not sure how that works.
It's an ACE inhibitor, so it's not an ARB.
Yeah.
It works, but this one like literally knocks your blood pressure down by 20 points. It's known to like people that have chronic blood pressure take it more than versus a telmisartan. Okay. The good thing about telmisartan is, though, it is cardioprotective, and it will remodel the LVH, so it will shrink back down.
Yeah. That
LVH can take both of them at the same time. I just do the lisinopril, and I take 20 milligrams per day. But I started taking this product called Hemoflow by Leviathan Supplements.
Leviathan, yeah.
And it literally, Luke, I haven't really even taken my blood pressure in 2 months, 3 months, and my blood pressure is like 110/60 on this stuff.
Yeah.
It has something in it with blood circulation, and it actually it makes your blood circulate smoother, and then also has nattokinase, which helps a lot with inflammation, and it actually is known arteries or something like that.
Yeah, they do a lot of extract. It probably has something that is like a pseudo telmisartan that is like a naturally occurring, so it reduces that angiotensin, so you're actually just blood vessels are relaxing a little bit. But yeah, Leviathan, pretty much they got expensive stuff, but everything I've used from them, I've been real happy with their GI. I've used with meals, and it really helps with digestion. So yeah, their stuff's really good. Shout out.
I think
we're not even affiliated with them, but shout out to them.
Right. I mean, the biggest thing, if you're a bigger person, like you said, you have to make sure you're getting your cardio in daily to keep your cardiovascular system up, and then just watching your blood pressure. Those are the two main things that I consistently did, and that helped.
So with the blood pressure, I have tried on a lot of those machines. I've ordered a big one and stuff, and they just are not ever accurate. I've tried the wrist one. I've tried the arm one. The machines, for some reason, are not accurate on me. So I thought that I had high blood pressure. Yeah, I was like measuring, and it would give you like 140, 145, and I was like, fuck, I gotta go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he like just kind of prophylactically put me on some losartan, and then I told his nurse while I was there, I was like, hey, can you like do it manually because I have an issue with those machines? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. And so I think the first time that I did it, I was like 265. I was like 111/82. And then I actually came off the losartan when I had started doing cardio, and I dropped about 5-6 pounds from doing the cardio back when that story I was telling you before. And my blood pressure dropped to like 108/77. I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. So yeah, so those things can be accurate. And if they're accurate, then definitely you should just get a log and test it, because then you can plot over time. Oh, if it's going up, it's going down. And then you can see like, oh yeah, I started doing cardio and it started doing better. I started, feeling better and stuff like that. But it's not like a a foolproof test. So I think that it maybe has something to do with the shape of my arm, but whenever those things like clamp on, the automatic ones, they have to go up to like 240 pressure to close off my veins. So I'm not sure why those ones just aren't accurate for me, but
your arms are too big.
Man, I wish. I wonder what Nick Walker does. He's got 3-inch, 4-inch bigger arms than me.
his 20-inch wrist.
One thing I kind of wanted to jump back to a previous topic. We were talking about oral steroids. So for our listeners at home, one of the ways that oral steroids mess with your digestion, a lot of guys will use oral steroids because they have a quick onset, very powerful. But so the way that your liver creates something called bile salts, and it gets stored in your gallbladder. And then when you eat fats, your gallbladder pumps this into your small intestines to emulsify the fats so that your body can break them down. If you take oral steroids, they're C17 alpha alkylated, so it messes with your liver's ability to create those bile salts efficiently. So a lot of times you'll hear guys, oh yeah, I'm on stuff, my acid reflux is crazy, I'm miserable, all these issues. So what Austin said way kind of back at the beginning is he wishes he wouldn't have done orals in the off season. I am like I don't do oral. There's really no reason. Just be patient for 10 fucking days. Injectable steroids kick in fast, just you feel better, you don't have acid reflux, and then you're defeating the purpose because you're taking, say, I don't know, 50 milligrams a day of anadrol. You're trying to eat 6,000 calories, and then you get down to where you're eating 2,800 because you can't even push food in because you're not digesting efficiently. So I'm a big one against oral steroids. I think the only place they have use is in powerlifting, when you need something like kind of a sledgehammer when you're coming into a meet and coming into a show when you don't want to have injection lumps. Maybe those last 4 weeks, but I would not do it long term. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, Austin and I both agree on that one.
I could
go
ahead.
Oh, sorry. All right, real quick. The orals do jack up your blood pressure a ton too. So
that too.
Anadrol, Superdrol, those three. When I was taking those, my blood pressure was like 200 over like 95.
Jesus Christ, bro.
But you know what? I was like, I need to grow like body part. And
I'm with you. I mean, I've done crazy, stupid stuff, but I wish that guys like me and you would have said, hey, don't hurt your longevity in the sport. Don't hurt yourself by trying to race to get there. Like you and I are both enormous guys. And, I've done it over the last 8-9 years with just using mostly just testing primo growth, and periodically I'll use insulin. So, and those are like super low. I just liked feeling good. Like I hate having acid reflux. I hate feeling like shit. So that's why I ended up just coming down to those ones.
So I can tell you, when I was young, I loved anadrol, and I never took more than one a day, but I would get strong on it. I never had a problem eating or any of that. And I probably used it off and on for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't take it for the longest time. And I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe 2 years ago, I decided to try it. I can tell you, I took one capsule, 50 milligrams. I felt horrible, like nauseous, I could feel like maybe my blood pressure was up. I got a headache. I just felt horrible. I couldn't eat from one. So my body must have changed as I got older, because like I said, when I was young, I could tolerate it. Now, no.
Yeah. I wasn't ever really able to. I mean, orals worked great for me to grow on, but I just felt like hell every time I ever tried them. So I cut them out years ago.
By far the best one, Superdrol. By far.
Yeah.
That made me a big, full, strong, dry, everything in one. And I didn't lose my appetite on it. But I mean, I was taking up to 30 milligrams of Superdrol pre-workout, and
damn.
I could literally squat like 6 reps on that thing. It would make me insane.
Superdrol is a powerful pro hormone for sure.
But it's probably one of the worst for your lipids. So be careful, and your kidneys. So.
Yeah. Your blood pressure shoots up. Kind of should touch on this. So bodybuilding, I would say the younger you get in, and you can push a lot harder when you're younger. You can push your food a lot harder. Larry's referred to this a bunch of times. He said I could, eat prior to him having Crohn's. I could literally eat fucking dog food and follow with a protein shake every day. And like I was, I had no issues. I just had a iron gut. Now if I eat, something off diet, I'm like shitting liquid for a couple days. So if you do have the potential for bodybuilding, get in when you're younger. Don't use extreme doses. Like with bodybuilding, the way you want to use the lowest dose that you can. I mean, I think on my first cycles, I used about, I want to say 500 tests. And then when I started going up, I got up to 600 tests. Now I've been on 800 tests the last about year, but I'm 265 pounds. I'm an open pro. And there's a lot of these guys that are 165 pounds and they're like, oh, I want to use what you're using. And I'm like, man, I got up to this dose by 15 years of dosing. And I only went up 200 milligrams from where I was at to like what I consider a high dose right now. So, if you don't I didn't change my doses for years. I just would cycle off, kind of clean out, go back on, start growing, try to maintain in that off time, just try to maintain size so that I kind of did like a blasting off point when I got back on cycle fresh. So a lot of these guys that are, wanting to use wild doses and stuff when they're young, you're kind of just robbing yourself, because where do you go after you're at 1,500, 2 grams? You just keep using more. Like, where are you going to put it? You're going to have just like pockets of oil in your delts and arms and legs and glutes every day because you're running 20 cc's a week. So, start low with like, start low and be realistic. Like if you're coming in, I mean, a lot of guys are like, oh yeah, I gained, once the guys have been in for a while and they're like, oh yeah, I gained 25 pounds on a month of Anadrol and this and that. And I'm like, man, you gained about like 18 pounds of water. Like, you didn't gain 25 pounds. Your first cycle, you can gain and maintain a lot of good size, but after a while you just hit, where you're getting side effects. You're just getting a shitload of water retention. So, be mindful of that you want to have longevity. It's not just a go for broke kind of sport. This is definitely going to be a marathon. You gotta train hard, and consistency over the long haul is the way to get 21-inch arms and gigantic, being huge. You just got to work hard. Consistency with the diet, consistency with the training, consistency, with your recovery over time is the way to get there and be healthy getting there.
Hey, Luke.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'll kind of spin off of that. Because if you're talking to like a kid that's 19, 17 or whatever, these young Gen Z guys, but let's talk about a guy that's like in his 30s, maybe 40 almost now. He's been training his whole life. He can squat 500 pounds natural. He can do bench, he can do plates. What would you tell that guy that wants to compete and he's like, man, I just want to get on stage. And he's already got like, say he's 225, 5'10". He's got tons of muscle.
Yeah.
What would you tell that guy versus a kid? If this guy's already built.
If he's never used before, then I would tell him the same thing. I would say probably start at 500. That kind of, first cycles is, fine. It's a fine dose to start at. Like I said, I turned pro on 600 milligrams of test. Obviously there was other androgens in there as well, trenbolone and masteron and stuff like that. But like your dosages don't have to be high. I think I turned pro. We pulled out all my tests and I did 700 tren. I don't recommend that. I felt like fucking dog shit, but I did 700 tren and 350 masteron. And that's what I turned pro on, was 1,050 a week. The last 4 weeks, like we had the test in before. I think we put the trend in maybe the 8 weeks out. So I think it was at 350, and then we pulled the test right at the end. It was 350 test, 350 masteron, and I want to say 350 trend, 350 Masteron, 600 trend, and then we pulled the test out and upped the trend the last 4 weeks. So, and I felt like fucking shit. My dick stopped working completely. I couldn't even get a nocturnal erection. I was fucking miserable.
But for kids, what you just said with that cycle and everything, you guys don't know. Luke has.
I'd been bodybuilding for a decade by the time I did that too. Like I
have genetics.
Yeah, and I have good, like crazy good
symmetry.
No, my response to steroids is extremely good as well. So,
what do we call that?
Hyper responsive, yeah. But what I would say with your guy, I mean, I would say if I was going to write a program for him, I would say kind of, yeah, let's take some gear. Let's, go into a little bit of an off season, see how you do on this, and then look at his structure, see how much muscle he has. Maybe he's ready just to go for a local show, for a national qualifier, and then kind of go from there. But going into a prep, I would probably do, I think it's hard to say because we all know how well trend works. Maybe like 250 trend, 250 Masteron, 400 test or something like that, coming into the last 8 weeks of prep for a guy, like you said, like an initial guy, if he'd already ran a couple, maybe 4 months of off season to go into the show. And he was like a, muscular guy, 35 years old. I think that's probably where I would start.
And that's only 900 milligrams per week, guys. We're not talking 3-4 grams. Mm-hmm. That's 900 grams.
And then I don't want someone to call bullshit. There's definitely guys that used 2 grams of Masteron and 2 grams of Tren and 2 grams of test to turn pro. There's these guys out there. I'm just telling you what I was able to do it on. I'm on the heaviest cycle that I've ever been on, and it's 800 test and 900 primo. So I'm still under 2 grams. So this is just like where I'm comfortable. I'm not comfortable going really any higher. I'm not comfortable shooting any more than that because that's already like 14, 15 cc's a week. And I'm just like, I can't inject anymore. I can't do a 3 cc from I can't do 3 cc's a day.
Well, let me give you a little bit of perspective. Like I started training back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And back then the emphasis was on training to build muscle. And
true,
the drugs were like protein powder. It was a supplement. Mm-hmm. We didn't think of them as like, oh, you're going to take this and magically grow muscle. It was like, it wasn't even talked about very much. I mean, you had to know somebody and someone had to like tell you something. There was no...
Well, the internet didn't exist. So, I mean, how did they even pass?
There's very little knowledge out there. So you had to like know people, and
it was probably kind of scary. Now we've built up to the doses we have because guys have done it before and survived. But in those days, like nobody was who's the first guy that's going to take a gram,
Right. But the dosage actually were very low, like
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm
under
saying.
A gram a week. Mm-hmm. And were the bodybuilders a little bit smaller in the 80s? Yeah, they were. But what was, I think, the main difference? I don't think it was the dosage of steroids. It was just in the 90s that people started using growth hormone and insulin.
Yeah.
And that's what made the difference in size, more than just more steroids. Now, with that said, I trained with a guy who was a world champion powerlifter for like 10 years, and he has multiple records in powerlifting. And 1 week before he broke the raw world record in the bench press, and this is by raw, not in a shirt or anything. We sat there with a calculator and added up everything he was taking. And this is no bullshit. He was taking test, tren, dianabol, and anadrol. Those 4 things. I sat there and added it all up, and he didn't even know how much he was taking. We just counted it all up. He took 10 grams
Jesus Christ.
in a week. And I will say he was probably one of the biggest, strongest people I've ever seen, even to this day. However...
He's alive?
Oh, he's alive. He took 10 grams in 1 week.
Jeez.
He bench pressed. I can't say the number because you'll know who he is, but a lot.
I know who he is.
But anyways, but what people don't know is he did that the week before the competition.
Only.
Yeah, the week before. He built up to that dose over a period of like 12 weeks, and then he took it that week, and then right after the competition was over, he went completely off for like 4 months, off of everything.
Mm-hmm. So he's getting in heavy, but he's getting out right away.
Yeah, now that same guy, when I got to my biggest, which was like between 245 and 250, I opened up my own gym up at Camarillo, and I hadn't seen him in about 4 or 5 months. And he came up for, I don't remember why he came, but he came up to my gym for some reason. And he said to me, like, what the hell are you taking? Like, how did you get so big? And for me, 245 on my frame is big. And this is honest to God truth. I was taking 400 chest, 300 deca, and 1 Anadrol a day. That's
Jeez.
it.
But that's like 1,000 milligrams.
Yeah, but
but that's a healthy. I mean, that's to me, a gram is like that's a lot of gear. That's not a like casual amount of gear. To me, a casual amount of gear is like 500 milligrams a week.
Right, but
like I'm saying,
at that point I was weighing between 245 and 250.
Yeah,
I squatted 820 pounds. I benched 555. I deadlifted 635, and yeah, that was the biggest and strongest I was, and that was like my maximum of gear that I could take, because more than that, I would just feel sick.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that we can touch on is there's a genetic component to bodybuilding, to taking gear. I mean, obviously there's a genetic structure and ability to grow and stuff, but there's a genetic component to the ability to heal from abusing your body, to heal from like taking these drugs and stuff. So there's definitely you look at this guy, people with this mentality, no one's going to outwork me. This, I can eat anything and stuff, but you got to look at yourself like you got to look at yourself as like a human and be like, all right, I'm not Phil Heath. I look at myself and I'm not Phil Heath. I have fantastic genetics, but I know that I'm not, Derek Lunsford. I know that I'm not. So, I mean, like, I'm not going to try to push 4 grams to think that I can become Derek Lunsford by using 4 grams. I've built up from moderate doses to what I consider a high dose right now, where I'm comfortable at. But I don't think that by doing double this that I will get the results to get to that level. I think that there's just a genetic component that's different between everybody, and I have probably like top 2% genetics. So, a lot of guys need to look at themselves and say, am I in the 50 percentile? Am I in the 60 percentile of what I can do bodybuilding? And if you are, just enjoy bodybuilding. Like, you can get big for you, you have to compare yourself to you, and you can push. I've seen everybody put on size, across the board. I've seen everybody look impressive in their own right across the board. Not everybody's going to be Phil, but you can go a long way and still be healthy and have crazy longevity. And if you want to make this your career, study steroids. I know a lot of guys that don't have that. They make millions of dollars in bodybuilding and they make great careers, and they don't got good genetics. They don't have size genetics like me and Austin. They don't have it, but they make 10 times the income that we do because they figured out, I love to train. They went deep into training. They love to be a coach. They went deep into coaching. They love to be, whatever they're doing. So there's a lot you can do in bodybuilding other than just being Mr. Olympia. Because there's only one fucking guy. That's one guy.
And to put things into context, when we think
of gym owner,
when we think of Ronnie Coleman, we think of the biggest freak of all time.
Yep.
But people forget that he was an Olympic competitor when he was natural. Mm-hmm. And I know some people don't believe that, but I believe that.
I believe it.
He placed last place at the Mr. Olympia, and he was natural. And then he went to he was so discouraged because he placed like 16th place, last place. He went to Flex Wheeler and said, what is it? I'm about to quit. What do I do? And that's when Flex sent him to Chad Nichols, and he got on gear. Now, I don't know what dosage he took, obviously he got bigger.
I would say pretty high, probably. Those days, in those early 2000s, guys were doing big doses.
But whatever he did, regardless of whatever he did, he was already an Olympic competitor before he touched a drug.
Yeah.
So his genetics were there. So as soon as he touched drugs, he blew up.
Yep.
Same with Ty Green was natural too, supposedly.
Yeah.
Remember when before pro, his genetics, if you look at him, he was insane. Fucking insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but prior, when he was just doing his national qualifiers, I think he might have turned pro. Is that they said he turned pro natural? I think he might have.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this: I've seen plenty of guys that didn't take drugs and were big and strong as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, we have a guy in my gym right now, Benito. I'm sure he doesn't mind me mentioning it. This guy weighs 400 pounds. He's squatting in the 900, deadlifting 800. I think he's benching around 600. I know for a fact he's never taken a drug because he competes in my drug-tested meets, and I administer the drug test and send it in.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's natty.
He's completely natty.
Yeah, I've spotted him before. He's got like a 850 squat. It's the scariest moment of my fucking life.
Mm-hmm. It's just his genetics.
Yeah.
And he's consistent with his training, and obviously he must eat a lot to keep up that 400 pounds. And an interesting thing happened to me. When I was young, I competed as a teenager, and then I got in trouble and I went to prison. And prior to going to prison, I went into LA County Jail, and I was there for, I think it was like over a year fighting a case. And in that place, there's no weights, and they're starving you to death. So I lost all kinds of size and weight. But as soon as I got to the prison yard, I got a job in the kitchen, and I got back to training with weights. I grew, and I didn't have access to any drugs. Mm-hmm. And for 6 years, I won all the they had powerlifting meets in the prisons back then. I won all the powerlifting meets. I was squatting 600, benching
you don't have
over 400, and deadlifting about 600 as well.
You don't have to use drugs.
And I wasn't taking anything because I didn't have anything to take.
Yeah.
And
food.
Yeah, I was eating literally the crappy food but I was working in the kitchen, so I had a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I was just eating a lot of food. Probably not the healthiest food, but it was just a lot of calories and, egg sandwiches and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
And then later, when I caught my case, Operation Raw Deal, this is when I was actually pretty big. I was probably over 240. And finally, I took a plea deal, and I had to go into TI for 14. It ended up being 14. It was going to be 24 months, but it ended up being 14 months with the halfway house and all this good time and whatever. But anyways, I went in there thinking, I'm 240, but I'm sure I'm going to lose a lot of size in here. Now, they did give me my TRT testosterone at 200 milligrams a week while I was there. And I had to go to every single week and get my shot in the not the doctor's office, wherever you go to get your drugs. During that 14 months that I was there, I didn't lose any size or strength.
200 milligrams is a decent dose. I've had clients that I've done TRT with and gotten them on 180, and they sent me the blood work, and he was like 1400 test level, and I had to ask him, will you send me a picture of the dose you're taking? Because I'm like, I think you're taking too much. And he was taking the right amount, but with different genetics, some people have 200 is a very decent dose.
Whatever it was, all I could say is I expected to lose my size and strength.
Yeah. But you maintained it.
I thought that I was going to lose it, within 3 or 4 months, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I just kept training and eating, and I kept my size and strength. I think it was about 1 month till I was going to go home. I saw a slight dip in the strength started to go down. Mm-hmm. But this is after, 13 months. I think in the 14th month, I started losing a little bit of strength. But for over a year, I maintained that size and strength with 200 milligram testosterone.
I want to circle back to the kind of something we didn't touch on is bodybuilding being heavy as you get older. Larry has cut back his size His doses are cut back. He's bodybuilding for longevity now. And, you know, I'm in the same boat. I'm 39 right now, but I really only have about 5 more years of cycling heavy and being like this. And then I'm going to take my, you know, retire from bodybuilding, retire from the open, and go down to 180, 200 milligrams a week of test, downsize a little bit. I'm thinking in the 230s, cut about 30, 40 pounds off where I'm at right now. And, you know, I mean, 230 pounds is still enormous compared, you know, but it's not like my only thing is being this size. Some people have it where it's their personality. If they're not big, they don't have confidence or anything like that. So I have like kind of fully come to grips with the fact that you can't be like what I was referring to about the dogs earlier. If I stay 265 pounds into 55, 60 years old, I'll probably die when I'm 60 years old, you know, but if I cut back to those 230s, you know, as I go up in age, look at Jay Cutler, as he's coming up in age, he's kind of getting a little bit smaller. That dude's going to live to be like 80, 90, like easy. So, and he was a mega dose, you know, one of the biggest humans there was, leanest, biggest humans there was, 4-time Mr. Olympia, but he's bodybuilding for longevity now. So, you know, that's one thing I just want to touch on is, you know, knowing when to take your foot off the gas, so to speak.
Well, one thing I want to say, and this was a hard pill for me to swallow personally. I wanted to keep my 240 pounds forever. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No matter.
I want to do it on my terms. I guess what I'm saying.
No matter, you know, I lowered my dosage of drugs mainly because I don't want to kill myself, but also it just doesn't work. Taking more doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I don't get anything more out of it. Over the years, slowly, I mean, I keep training as hard as I can, eating as best I can, but every year it's just a little bit harder to maintain that size and strength. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it's like I'm 58 in November. I'm just fighting to hold on to what I got. And that might sound negative or whatever, but actually I look at other people my age.
And they're old. They're old when they're 60.
And they
guys
can't.
at 60 are getting old.
I can still squat 500 pounds for reps.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But I'm just training my ass off and eating as best I can. But like, I'm not going to be 240 pounds, no matter what drugs I take, no matter I'll just kill myself. But I'm not going to be 240 pounds again. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So is there any other?
So I
think.
Go ahead.
Like what, and I think we can kind of like, what do you think the main issue is? Why are there so many guys dying? And then why are there younger guys dying? And then we're seeing the older guys that have been bodybuilding dying. What do you think it's causing this effect? Like recently we've seen a lot. Well, but why is that?
Okay.
You know?
We didn't really touch on this, and we do need to before we close it down. A lot of guys are dying really close to the stage. They're dying, you know, a day or two after the stage. They're dying coming into the stage, you know, a couple days out. And what that is from almost always is diuretic use and not understanding how your kidneys, you know, you damage your kidneys, you damage your heart, you get hyperkalemia, which is potassium, too high potassium from certain diuretics. So, you know, a lot of these coaches that you're probably using, they got a protocol from their coach that they used at one point, and then maybe they do a tweak on it because everybody likes to put their dick on something that they do. And then, you know, it gets down to the point where guys are running aldactone a month out, can't take any salt 2 weeks out, drinking no water 5 days out. And like, that's just stupid. Like, that's just hurting you. That's just hurting your look. I mean, I kind of tried to counsel people, get in shape, you know, whatever that takes, get in shape. If you're not in shape for the show, maybe push to the next one, whatever it is, get in shape. When you're in shape, Austin can attest to this. When you're 2 weeks out and you're in shape, you are peeled. Like, you don't need a diuretic. You wake up in the morning and you're like, holy crap, like everything is looking good. And then, you know, I've taken a a quarter of a diazide, the 12.5 milligrams of diazide. And, that's what I got my card on. We did 12.5. I almost wish that I would have not done it, but, because I diazide continues working, and I ended up going flat because I didn't have enough potassium sodium in me, and I just couldn't flex my muscles and keep a pump. So that's something that I think a lot of people do. All the time you hear people, oh, I was so flat. Oh, the next day I went and ate pancakes, and man, I wish I looked like this the day after. Like, so you're risking looking 5% better to 90% of the time people look 25% worse. So, and I think diuretics are something that are not understood. I think people don't understand, coaches don't understand how they work. They're just prescribing them because they got a protocol from someone else and they're doing a thing. So get with a coach. If they do know diuretics, then okay. But that's why these guys that are young, 19 years old, I think a guy just died last week. Larry sends me these. I freaking hate watching them because it's like there's been like 3 or 4 of them that have been under 25 in the last month, and they're just dying because of not understanding diuretics. So and then also along the same lines, if you don't die, getting that dehydrated is extremely hard on your kidneys. And then you go the other direction after the show. A lot of guys, your leptin and ghrelin is all crazy, so you can't stop eating. Like, you literally can't stop. Like, you can just keep pushing until your stomach hurts. I've done it. Sure, Austin has done it too. Where your the next day, the next 3 or 4 days, you get on the scale and you're up 25, 35 pounds. That's extremely hard on your heart. That's extremely hard on your blood pressure, on your kidneys. So a lot of people end up causing damage right after the show. So keep doing your cardio, keep doing your steps, keep pushing the water through. Don't, have a meal with your family, have a couple meals, but don't wake up at 3 a.m. and be eating, going to the store to buy better Butterfingers.
So I think this is where the confusion comes in. So back in the 90s, people were really big, probably maybe bigger than ever, and really shredded, maybe more shredded than ever. But what they did is they took the steroids that they had, were, the testosterone, the anadrol, the DECA, whatever they were taking, EQ. We didn't have the same type of anti-estrogens back then. All we had was Novadex. There was something called Teslac, which was sort of like on the level like a Proviron. But they didn't have real anti-estrogens like Arimidex, Aromacin, Letrozole. That didn't exist. So guys would go into a show and they'd be carrying an extra 20 pounds of water from all the high dosages of steroids they were taking. So then they take that diuretic protocol, and some of them did die on it anyways, but most of the time it would drop the 20 pounds of water off them and they'd be stage ready. Nowadays,
people come in stage ready.
You can take non-aromatizing things, the last few weeks, like, Masteron,
PhDs, yeah.
Primo, stuff like this, and Winstrol, whatever. And you're not holding a bunch of water. So now you're not holding a bunch of water and you're already dry a week out before the show. And now you're going to take diuretics. Well, where do you think the water is going to come from? It's going to come from your muscle, and you're going to be flat, dehydrated, and maybe kill yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're already depleted at that point. I just prepped a guy for a show, and he did great. We took a diazide the night before the show. That was it. The whole thing. Because he was ready.
I remember a story. I can't remember if John told me or I watched him do a podcast, but he was talking about diuretics, and I believe he got his pro card at Team U Masters, I think. And he had a coach. I forget who his coach was, but he had a couple diuretics, and he's like, all right, this is what I got. That it was the night before the show, and his coach, they were like in the bathroom, and I think his coach had him, and they were standing over the toilet, and he's like asking which one he should take, and he just goes, he dumps them down the toilet. He said, you don't need these. You're ready. So, I mean,
I'll tell you a true story. This is a scary story. I have never had a problem getting in shape because, like, I walk around 5% year round, so that's never been a thing. I've been on stage flat and depleted, but never not conditioned.
Lean.
Yeah. I remember I competed at the Cal. I'm sure I was rock hard, as always. And I came off of the stage right after prejudging, and I ran into, what is his name? Tom Prince. And I knew Tom from Gold's Gym, and he was a pro. And I walked up to him and I said, so what did you think? And he goes, well, I think you're holding a little film of water. Here, take this Lasix. And he hands me this white pill. At the time, I didn't really know what a Lasix was, but I'm like, oh, this is Tom Prince. He's a pro. He knows. I'll listen to him. And this is after prejudging, so it was stupid. I'm like, the judging is over. So I take the Lasix. I go into my car. I'm sitting with my girlfriend in the parking lot waiting for night show. And all of a sudden, I feel like this pulsating going through my hamstrings and my calves. And it felt like my arteries were pumping blood really hard. I don't know if it was cramps or what, but this super intense pulsating in my legs. And I could feel like my blood was pumping really hard. And I thought to myself, I don't know what's going on here, but I know this is really bad. And I thought of Muhammad Ben Azizi. Mm-hmm. And there was a liquor store about 100 yards in front of us where we were parked. I beelined it straight to the liquor store. And I went straight inside, got a whole thing of salted cottage cheese and a gallon of water, and I downed that. Because I thought to myself, I'm not going to kill myself for this bodybuilding contest. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I knew, this is really bad. Whatever's happening is just not normal. I've never felt like this, and this is not a good thing.
Yeah, Lasix are one of the most powerful ones. That they're a loop diuretic, and they deplete sodium, but they spare potassium. And if you're carbing up on potassium, that's how Momo Benaziza died. He was carbing up on dates and took loop diuretics and hyperkalemia, and his heart stopped because the electrolytes in your heart need to have the right concentration, and that's just how you die.
The right balance. If your potassium, if your potassium's too high and your sodium's too low, it causes a heart attack. That's how they. By the way, that's how they put down a dog. They give them an injection of potassium, and it instantly stops their heart.
Yep. So the other deaths, the other young deaths, I think were probably, in a lot of cases, I think they died from not staying healthy, not doing their cardio. I think that Sean Roden passed because we all saw Sean Roden in the off season. He stopped working out, got crazy heavy. He was an alcoholic for several years, hardcore. And that causes a lot of damage as well. And then he would, we saw him at, I want to say it was before the Olympia that he won. He did that Pittsburgh Pro, and he was completely just sloppy, out of shape. And, that means that you're not bodybuilding. He was 290 pounds. I think he was like 5'11", and he was just like, I would say 20% body fat. So if you're this heavy already, and then you get, out of shape that far, that's extremely, extremely unhealthy for you. So if you're going to be heavy bodybuilder, you need to, keep up with the working out, keep up with the training. I mean, let me think of some other ones that passed. John Meadows was.
Let me touch on something with Sean Roden. This is not talking shit about the dead or any of that stuff. So
I'm not talking shit about him.
No. I'm saying I'm going to say something.
I'm just making it clear what he died from.
I know some people are like, he's dead. Don't talk bad.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Olympia. It was in Orlando. So I want to say that was, what was the first year it was in Orlando? Was it 21 or 22?
2020.
Okay. Well, whatever the first year was in Orlando, I was there. It was like right before he passed. And he was working at a booth. I forgot the name of the booth. It was one of the supplement company booths. And he was eating rotisserie chickens. They were bringing it to him. And I sat there and watched him. I don't know what he was trying to get ready for or whatever, but he must have been like trying to get ready for something. He ate like right in front of me 5 rotisserie chickens, the whole thing, everything, the skin and everything.
That's a lot of calories.
I mean, he was just downing these chickens.
Was he out of shape or was he trying to get back in shape? I know that's probably when he was going.
I think he was trying to gain weight, maybe for whatever reason, because at the time they weren't letting him compete.
Yeah.
But I think maybe he thought he was going to compete. So but this is right before he passed.
Yeah.
So, and he was weighing like around 300 pounds.
But yeah, you just can't get that out of shape when you're 300 pounds. And, you know, if something happens, you know, the way that Cedric McMillan passed, he got COVID and then he was in the military, so probably got vaccinated as well. And then he went in the hospital and he got pneumonia. And pneumonia, doesn't matter what your age is. I've known several people to be in the ICU from, you know, getting pneumonia, and the doctors told him you got 10% heart ejection.
Ejection fraction.
Yeah, and so they told him that, and then he came out. He was trying to get healthy, and then I mean maybe he'd already just done so much damage that he wasn't able to get back from it. So that's another one that, you know, just kind of.
Well, I'll tell you something. Back in the 80s, there was a guy named Dave Johns. He was a pro, and he trained at World Gym, and he was one of the biggest guys in the gym there. He must have weighed around 290, maybe close to 300 pounds, and fairly lean at that weight. He worked as a probation officer somewhere in Lancaster, and he died of San Joaquin Valley fever. But what actually killed him was when they went to do the CPR, his chest was so big
They couldn't
pump anything. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so he just died of heart attack. But he said it was San Joaquin Valley fever. And this is back in the 80s when I don't know what he was taking exactly, but I don't think people were running like super high dosages.
He was just so
it was
big.
just the sheer size of him.
Yeah.
He was just so big that his heart couldn't take the sickness.
And then John Meadows, I think he actually outlived his potential because both his parents died in their 30s from heart disease, and he lived to be 49, but he got a pulmonary embolism, which means he got a blood clot in his lung, and then it broke loose, and then it went into his heart and gave him a heart attack. He'd had a heart attack a year prior, and his injection fraction was like 20 or 25%. And then he was working to get it back, but John had a issue with clotting. That's why he had to have his colon removed 10 years earlier, because he got a blood clot in his colon, and it stopped getting blood feeding to his colon, and it you know, basically died. So he had to have his colon removed.
Didn't he have colitis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of their. Rich Piana was, I would say he was the same as him and Boston Lloyd were just OCD. They were just habitual drug users. They used opiates. They used, drugs. They pushed their body. They pushed their doses to crazy numbers. And I think that you just can't push your body for too long. I mean, Boston had kidney disease. He was already like stage 5 kidney failure. And he knew it, and he was still pushing, wanting to be, push the drugs. So with Boston, he was, he was just kind of a habitual, like, line pusher, I guess it would be the kind of the way to say it. So like a lot of what I'm getting at is a lot of the kind of high profile deaths, they have like specific reasons that in a sense may not have been preventable. John's probably wasn't preventable. Boston and Rich's probably were, but just because of, their mindset, that was kind of not preventable. Cedric's was just a kind of bum luck that he got COVID and then, those respiratory diseases. He may have already had an issue with his heart already, and that just pushed him over the line. So with what I'm getting at is kind of those high profile deaths. A lot of guys that passed, a lot of guys right now that are kind of worried about passing, look at your lifestyle and look at your bodybuilding, and are you, keeping your blood pressure under control? Are you getting your heart checked? Are you doing your cardio? Are you, eating, in a way that you're not causing a ton of inflammation, causing a ton of high lipid values, stuff like that. So that's kind of just my take on where it is. I don't think guys are just like, they're not dying just because of steroids. There's kind of, there's like a reason. There's a missing puzzle piece to why the guys are, a lot of guys are. And there's been a huge uptake since 2020 of guys passing. And so maybe they have somewhat compromised heart already, and then they get a respiratory illness, and then it pushes them over the line where there's an
even
issue.
Females now are starting to pass more.
A lot of the females I'm seeing are, I think, more diuretic related.
Probably.
Yeah. Because they don't have the size issue, they're not carrying 260 pounds.
Some of these girls, I know,
big for a female is like if they're pushing 290.
I know a girl that's
5'2"
5'2" and she's 180 pounds, fairly lean.
Yeah, that's
now.
heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
So, is there any other? Go ahead.
You know what I noticed, Luke, is that most of those guys that you're talking about, they're bigger guys. So you're seeing it in the bodybuilders that are mostly open competitors, or the guys in the off season that are pushing a lot of drugs, that are trying to get up to the 300-pound mark. I mean, look at Dallas McCarver.
Yeah,
he was
enormous, 320,
pounds.
330, yeah.
And he had an enlarged. I think his heart was double the size of a normal heart, or something. It was like 900 grams per. With the normal heart was like 265.
I think with Dallas, he may have had a genetic issue, but that's something that may be testing, because Dallas also had pneumonia just a couple months prior. He passed out on stage at the Arnold Australia.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's I don't know too in depth if he did testing on that. I know that he was trying to do some health stuff, but I don't know what the depth was of the health stuff that he was doing. And then, definitely, if bodybuilding is your career, it's scary to, think that, I got to downsize. I got to, do something different than what I know how to grow, So that's definitely like a difficult pill to swallow for sure. But yeah, going back, like I said, you said the guys, the size is the size is really hard on guys if they're not staying healthy, if they're not moving, doing their cardio.
Do you think, and I think a lot of guys ask that, do you think taking steroids and competing, every guy says it, do you think it shaves years off of your life? Because I know I've heard Jay Cutler say it, and I heard multiple, old school guys say it. Do you think it ultimately shaves years off your life if you do it healthy?
I actually really don't. If you're able to get out of the game when you're supposed to. I think a lot of people do a lot of things, a lot of people through college drink and do drugs and push their bodies just like to crazy depths of no sleep and stuff like that. And then those people kind of just keep going, you kind of get out over that phase in your life and you go, you get healthy and they live a pretty long life. So I think that if you're keeping your heart healthy and you're not getting a ton of left ventricular hypertrophy and you're not getting atherosclerosis in your veins and these things you can test for and look at, if you're not getting those things, I don't think you're causing an issue. But if you are getting those, then I think that you need to reevaluate your goals and how long you plan on living.
I'll say.
I think what we should.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Austin.
I think what we should let the viewers know is if you have pre-genetic dispositions to getting heart failure, heart disease, kidney failure, you 100% need to do proactive screenings and testings before you really dive deep into your bodybuilding career. And even if you do, you definitely need to get those annual tests, especially with those pre-genetic dispositions. Those are a must for those folks.
Yeah. And I would say getting like a whole battery of tests once a year. I mean, like if you don't have insurance and you pay out of pocket, the whole battery of tests is like $350, $400. I mean, to say like, oh, that's too much, I can't do it. Well, maybe you shouldn't use, like, what's a cycle? $350, $400. If you can't afford if you can afford to pay for the cycle, you need to afford to pay for the post and the testing to make sure that you're, staying healthy.
There's my take on things. Everybody, it's inevitable we're all going to die someday. And people have been dying forever. I remember even when I was young, I had a friend who was a Hell's Angels. He died in his 40s. Mm-hmm. It happens for whatever reasons.
Yeah, everyone's going to die for some reason.
Is doing this bodybuilding and taking these drugs, is it going to make you die prematurely earlier than you would have? Maybe. We can't say for sure. But are there things that you can possibly do to extend your life by getting your health checks, doing your cardio, eating properly, all of these things? Maybe it's still going to kill you. Like John Meadows, there was no saving him. He was.
I think he might have extended his life because both his parents died in their 30s, but he lived to be nearly 50. So I think he may have extended his life.
Maybe he did, but regardless, he's not going to be 80.
Yeah.
But still, at the end of the day, it's your life. And if you care about your life at all, you will get your blood work done. You'll get your calcium CT score done. You'll do the things that you need to do to try to stay around a little bit longer. And at the end of the day, we can say, well, it's the fault of steroids. It's the fault of society. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's your life.
Mm-hmm. You got to live with your decisions.
And it doesn't matter what your coach tells you or some coach told you or whatever. You're the one that's going to suffer the consequences of what you do. So we're just telling you, if you want to stick around, if you care at all, and a lot of people when they're young, they think, well, I'm going to live forever anyways. I don't need to worry about this. Well, when the day comes that you get sick and you think you're going to die, you'll wish you did some things.
It's never too soon to start thinking about it.
I had a kidney stone a few months back, which I've never had in my life. First time. I didn't know what it was. All I know is all of a sudden I had massive pain. I had to go to the ER. I literally thought I was dying. I didn't know what from, because I didn't know what a kidney stone was. I just felt like I got shot. It turned out it was a kidney stone. It wasn't anything serious. But I could tell you when I was laying in the hospital, like going into convulsions, literally, I thought I was going to die right then. And probably if I didn't go to the ER right then, I might have. So then makes you kind of think, maybe I should get these tests done. Maybe I should get things checked out. Maybe I'm not ready to check out just yet. Mm-hmm. I still have a few things I want to do before, my time comes.
Yeah. And knowing is a lot better than not knowing,
Yeah, you can't stick your head in the sand.
Going in, knowing your blood pressure, knowing your, these things, and then you can maybe mitigate it, maybe, get around it by doing your car. I'm harping on that, but I think it's so important to keep your body healthy. So,
I mean, we all love bodybuilding. That's the main thing. Like we would do it until we're 95, but we just can't. It's not possible. But there's life after bodybuilding. Like Luke said, he's going to stay 230 and still train like a bodybuilder, eat like a bodybuilder. I'm sure you're still going to have big arms and you're still going to look good. You're just not going to be massive. Yeah. But you younger guys, you're going to get up to these ages where you can't bodybuild anymore. And I've even thought about it, the past couple of years. I'm almost 42. I know it's going to happen, and I know I'm going to be depressed. But it's just I can't push gear in my upper 40s.
I'm going to be honest. I don't even think I'll be disappointed. I think that I'll be happy when I don't have to inject. Because I inject every day right now, and I have to get up and I'm only thinking about, when's my next meal? Oh, it's 10 a.m. I got to eat my third meal. Oh, I'm kind of excited because I just took a vacation. I just got back from vacation and I didn't think about bodybuilding at all. I just woke up and ate whatever I felt like eating. And so I think that like life after bodybuilding, there's like, after, competitive bodybuilding, there's like it'll be nice to cut down to doing one shot a week and doing, eating till I'm comfortable and losing weight where I'm athletic and like, quick. Cause there was times, I'm, as heavy as I am, I was like, we were trying to go snorkeling. We were trying to go hiking and I'm like, I'm getting winded and I'm like an in shape bodybuilder. So I can't even imagine like an out of shape guy going on hikes and stuff. So
I'll say this.
It sucks.
I've been training since I was 12. I'm still training just as hard today as I did when I was at my strongest. Yeah. I'm not lifting as much weight as I did before because I'm not as big and strong, but I'm still training as hard as I can. I'm still trying to stay on my program. And I've just accepted the fact that, I'm not going to lift as much weight because I'm not 240 pounds. I'm 200 pounds. And that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. There's nothing, and I'm not depressed about it. I can say there's been times when my lifts have gone down and like I'm like, this sucks. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like in the last 3 months, like I can't lift the same weight as I did before, but I had to like get over it because it is what it is. Yeah. But I can still train and I'm still, again, like still better shape than 99% of the people my age. I can still do everything that I want to do.
All right, I think we've scared the guests long enough. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of material. I appreciate you guys coming on. Everybody, if you like the content, we plan to keep doing this, so like and subscribe, and we'll keep bringing it to you. And a lot of things coming up. The Olympia's coming up in a few weeks, so a lot of exciting things going on there. Other than that, anything you want to promote or anything?
Yeah, I reopened my coaching. So if anybody wants one-on-one coaching, just reach out to me, Luke the Hulk on Instagram. And I can help you out, get to your best physique ever, best health ever. So, Austin, anything?
Awesome.
I got my NPC show. It's the Steve Carr Classic, Las Vegas, Nevada, November 2nd. It's at Alexis Park. We usually have over 200 competitors. And it's 3 weeks before the Nationals. So you can get nationally qualified to compete at the Nationals. And if you do good at our show, you're going to do good at that show because we have a lot of good competitors all the time. So November 2nd, it's on my Instagram. If you have any questions, hit me up. So definitely.
Where's it at? Where is it at? In Reno?
It's at Alexis Park on the Strip.
In Vegas?
Yeah,
in Las Vegas,
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you want to come out, let me know. I'll get you tickets. You guys can stay out there. Yeah. It's a good event. It's cool. It's going to be a lot of local pros. And we got Vegas is the mecca now for bodybuilding. It really is. There's so many pros. Dude, there's so many out here. So if you want to come out and support, let me know.
Yeah.
And if any of you guys are in the area or if you live out this way, go to Underground Performance Gym. We have the best training equipment in all of Ventura County. And you go to our website. We have all the HT muscle supplements and Chemex supplements all on sale there. So you can get all the health supplements, protein, and everything you need. I think we've covered it all. So Larry Pollock with, I just blanked out.
Luke Carroll and Austin Karr.
Signing out. And we'll catch up with you guys next week.
See you guys.
All right, brother. See you guys.
The hills of Calvary.